Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I've just about calmed down since the Italian Grand Prix. That's a complete lie. Haven't calmed down whatsoever because Daniel Ricciardo came out on top. He got the first win for McLaren, the first win for McLaren since 2012 in Brazil. And we got a 1-2 to go along with it. Don't worry, I will be talking Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, but I thought there's only one place to start with the Italian Grand Prix. It is the winners, McLaren. They did an exceptional job all weekend, and Daniel Ricciardo did an exceptional job all weekend as well. He got a great start in the sprint race, made up so many positions, ended up coming third in that, and then again had a great start again today, jumped into first place, took the lead into turn one, and never looked back. Since the summer break, this guy has looked absolutely phenomenal. P4 in Belgium, and now this win. And let's be honest, it was not an easy win. You know, the McLaren boys both had to fight for their positioning. Danny and Lando did a great job. Lando has had an incredible season so far and is continuing to just make it better and better and better. But they had a really tough job. They had to defend from Max Verstappen. You know, they had to defend from Lewis Hamilton, and they did it with aplomb. They were a beautiful pair throughout the race, and the fact they got this 1-2, just absolutely sensational stuff. I can't put it into words how happy I am as a McLaren fan, as someone who's been following McLaren since Jenson Button moved there. It was just amazing to see these guys on the top of the podium and second place as well. It was so incredibly good. The safety car obviously did a little bit of a favour for Lando Norris, managed to jump a few places, get in front of Charles Leclerc as well on the return. And, well, interesting that Norris actually gave a little bit of a hurry up to Daniel Ricciardo as well. I thought maybe, you know, Lando Norris, is he getting a little bit too big for his boots, or does he know that he is realistically the number one driver in this team? He has absolutely trounced his teammate this season. If we look at the drivers standing so far this season, Lando Norris is still absolutely miles ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. So maybe he just thinks to himself, you know what? I kind of maybe deserved that win, considering the season that I've had. But Danny Ric was the man who came out on top, and he did an exceptional job doing so. Let's talk a little bit about the guys who came just behind. So if we look at the actual results from today, it was Valtteri Bottas who managed to pick up a podium out of nowhere, started in 19th place, drove his way through the entire field. And personally for me, I know Daniel Ricciardo got driver of the day, and that is fair enough. He won the race. But my driver of the day and my driver of the weekend might just be Valtteri Bottas winning the sprint race, getting pole position in qualifying, and a podium today. I think he's done exceptionally well indeed. And one of the best drives that I've seen from him over the course of a weekend in a very long time. That pressure is finally off of him. He knows that he's not going to be at Mercedes next year. He can just enjoy it for the second half of the season. And he knows he's going to be in Alfa Romeo next year. So he doesn't have to fight for a place on the Formula 1 grid either. He knows where he's going. He knows where he stands. And I think we could see some really good things from Bottas, especially because he's exceptional in Russia. And we've got Russia coming up in 2 weeks' time. As well as Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez picked up some good points today. I think he'll be a little bit disappointed with that 5-second penalty. It was a good drive overall, especially in a car that he didn't seem overly comfortable with, you know, only qualifying in 9th place. He wasn't very happy in the car this weekend. He did have to give the toe to Verstappen over the course of qualifying, but a 5-second penalty for coming into sort of a little bit of trouble with Charles Leclerc. It's those two again. You know, they collided already this season in Austria. Those two again. This time Perez gets a 5-second penalty. He got past Leclerc, and to be fair, he was off the track. And for me personally, when you're looking, especially at these constructor standings, it's so close between Mercedes and Red Bull. I don't know why Perez and the Red Bull team didn't have a little chat about it. I know that Christian Horner's come out and said that they weren't told to give the place back like quick enough. By the time obviously it had happened, Bottas has already got past Leclerc, but at the same time, like, I could see it from home. Surely everybody could see that Sergio Perez, it kind of looked a little bit dodgy the way that he got past Charles Leclerc into turn 4-5, and he wasn't really, you know, he wasn't really on the track. He kind of went off the track. He went over the speed bumps, gained the position. You know, we could all see that. I think he kind of needed to give it back, but did exceptionally well, managed to keep Bottas behind him for quite a long time in the race, but couldn't keep him behind when the 5-second penalty was applied and ended up coming home in 5th place overall, just in front of Carlos Sainz. And it was very close indeed to just in front of Carlos Sainz. Okay, let's talk about what you've probably all been waiting for. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. They're coming together. They came together earlier on in the race too. They came together into turn 4. A very similar incident to Imola. Gave me very Imola vibes when they were going wheel to wheel earlier on in the race. And Max, with an 11-second stop, meant that Lewis was able to sort of piece together and get to the same piece of track as Max Verstappen. It was, whilst Lewis Hamilton, he managed to get in front of Lando Norris as well. That went a little bit under the radar. Lewis Hamilton did manage to overtake Lando Norris. He then obviously lost that position again with a slow stop himself, but he did get in front of Norris just for a little bit. That gave him a little bit of leverage. It gave him some free air for about, 2/3 of the track. And he did pull off a pretty good lap time in that lap. Lap 26, though, Hamilton's slow stop after Verstappen's already had a slow stop. He's coming out of the pit lanes, and they literally come out of the pits directly next to each other. It's as if Drive to Survive had written it themselves, because they come out wheel to wheel going into turn 1. And if you look at it here, already you can see that there's going to be something going on. Lando Norris manages to get himself out of the way. He did really well to just jump in front of those two and make sure he was out of the way before they collided. But neither driver was going to give an inch to the other. It came to the point here where Max Verstappen, you can see Lewis Hamilton has just left not quite enough space, but at the same time, Max Verstappen isn't actually alongside Lewis Hamilton. It looks like he is here because he's already bounced over the curbs. He was never alongside Hamilton enough to warrant him being in that position. And neither driver, as I said, was going to give a millimetre. They know that every single point counts in the races this season. If you just look at the Drivers' Championship, there's still only 5 points between them. They're going to be trying everything that they possibly can to stop the other from getting any points. Lewis Hamilton knows that he needs every single point that he can, because that Red Bull has been the better car, I would say, over the course of this season. But realistically, I personally thought it was a racing incident. I thought that, both cars were going a little bit too deep. Both cars basically missed the corner and messed the corner up a little bit. Verstappen, though, has come under fire, and Verstappen was the one, obviously, that mounted Lewis Hamilton by the time they did get round the corner, bounced on those curbs, the rear ends collide. It was, both rear tyres collided with one another. That kicked up Verstappen into the air, and then suddenly we've got Verstappen on top of Lewis Hamilton. Before we talk about the penalties and what's come of repercussions, thank goodness me that we've got those halos in Formula 1. I know that Formula 1 has progressively got safer and safer and safer, but that was absolutely heart-wrenching to see. I honestly thought that Lewis Hamilton was going to be really, really injured from that crash. When you saw the wheel of Max Verstappen literally driving over his head, but the halo and the helmets managed to do their job. They kept him safe, and as we could see, he got out of the car and was all fine. Just an amazing job that these engineers do to keep these drivers safe. As I was saying, though, next race, as we move into it, if I just put up the positions that they eventually came, well, going into next race, Verstappen has picked up a 3-place penalty and 2 points on his license. He was deemed to have broken too late into turn 1. And I kind of agree with that, to be honest with you. I do think Lewis Hamilton was ahead. At no point was Max Verstappen ever realistically going to gain that position on Lewis Hamilton. Yes, they were side by side, but Verstappen was always that little bit behind Lewis Hamilton. And, Verstappen had to duck out of it. It was Verstappen at the end, for me, who was kind of more at fault. As I said, I personally thought it was a racing incident at the time. I can see why they've slightly leaned towards it being Verstappen's fault, and Verstappen is going to pick up those penalties. And, of course, a 3-place penalty drop when it comes to the grid next time out in Russia. Let's very quickly talk the rest of the grid. We'll talk Ferrari. A pretty good finish for them. They'll be very happy indeed, considering how high McLaren finished, picking up those points in the Constructors' Championship, keeping, within a reasonable distance of McLaren, considering they both finished up on the podium today. But overall, not too bad. Leclerc was as high as second, but they never really had the pace this weekend. And Carlos Sainz had another very good, very consistent race, but didn't show anything astounding. He has been very, very good in that Ferrari this year. Let's not take anything away from that. But He hasn't shown any flashes of like real brilliance in the last few races. I think he's just missing that tiny little bit with the Ferrari. I know we've seen him spin off in free practices quite a few times, and I think that is him trying to find the absolute limit of this Ferrari. And once it clicks for him, I could see him taking even more steps forward in this Ferrari, which is insane because he's already doing exceptionally well. You know, he's keeping level pegging with Leclerc throughout this entire season. He's done exceptionally well. I think he's done a wonderful job at Ferrari. Let's talk about the midfield team. So Stroll was the man who came out on top for Aston Martin, picked up points for them, and they really needed some points this time out, especially because the AlphaTauris weren't involved. It was unfortunate that Vettel couldn't get past, the Alpines. Had a bit of an incident with Stroll and Vettel coming together into turn 1. Then Vettel and Ocon came together on lap 15. Vettel came off worse out of that one as well. And then Alonso and Ocon just consistently picking up points now, aren't they? It's wonderful to see Alpine finally clicking. Alonso coming in 8th, Ocon coming in 10th. Just, again, consistent points. And I'm going to go back to that Constructors' Championship again because it is starting to look very, very poor from Aston Martin's perspective. They're going to really struggle with 8 races left to go to catch Alpine. And if Alpine can get a 5th place finish, that is an exceptional return from them. If you're an AlphaTauri fan, you'll probably want to look away now because, Gasly and Tsunoda, forgot his name for a second there, Yuki Tsunoda didn't actually make the race. Well, Yuki Tsunoda got to the grid and then didn't make the race, and Gasly was supposed to be starting from the pit lane. It looked like he wasn't going to make the race. He did just about, but then came in after a lap and retired both of those cars. Not very good looking for AlphaTauri this weekend. Both cars out within the first few laps. Not very good indeed. Talking at the back of the pack though, and I'm going to put up the results again because look who there in number 9 is George Russell. He keeps doing the exceptional. It's become just the standard now. I haven't seen anybody talking about George Russell, and that's insane because he's got points in a Williams again. And Williams have just decided out of nowhere that they're going to have a little run at the Aston Martins in the Constructors' Championship. 22 points. It's the same sort of gap that Aston Martin have to Alpine. I wouldn't put it past Williams. They've got that 2nd place finish in Belgium, and that was only half points. Maybe they can have a little run at Aston Martin towards the end of the season. Obviously, when we look at the points overall, Russell and Latifi are right at the back of that pack, still 3 points behind Tsunoda. I think if Russell can catch up to Tsunoda, or even Stroll, we're looking at an absolutely disgusting season from Williams. They have looked a completely different team since coming back after the summer break, and George Russell has been at the forefront of that. Latifi as well, an 11th place finish, just outside the points. Wonderful, wonderful stuff from them. Giovinazzi will quickly talk about, qualified in 10th. Sprint race, got himself up to 7th, got himself in front of Carlos Sainz down into turn 1. It was looking like it was going to be the Italian dream for the Italian driver, and then it just all went wrong. He got it wrong into turn 4, came onto the track a little bit dangerously, ended up spinning out, and that was the end of his race. And I was really, really sad for Giovinazzi. He has shown over the last 2 weekends that he can qualify with the best of them. He has found some pace in that Alfa Romeo from absolutely nowhere. And, Kimi Räikkönen hasn't been there, and Giovinazzi has stepped up to the plate. I know that his is the only seat available in Formula 1 right now. I've never been a massive Giovinazzi fan, but if he keeps going like this, Alfa Romeo have got a really big decision on their hands because I don't know how they can say no to Giovinazzi if he's hitting this kind of form, and if he can travel this kind of form into 2022 too. We're looking at a good driver and him possibly stepping up to the next level in his career. But very unlucky from him today. It seems like Giovinazzi just is the most unlucky driver on the grid. Maybe Gasly in there as well, to be honest with you. They just can't catch the break this season, and Giovinazzi again was at fault and fell down to the pack. Finally, the Haas cars then at the back. There's Mick Schumacher for you. Those two are going to come together. I mean, they had a little bit of a tussle today and a little collision as well down into turn 4. Mazepin spins out Mick Schumacher, but they are going to have a big crash before the end of the season. Every single race now, every single qualifying session, every single sprint race, they are just coming together. They are having a little bit of a tussle, and the two of them are getting ever closer to a really big collision. It would not surprise me if there is a big crash between the two Haas guys before the end of the season. And if it isn't before the end of the season, it's looking like they're going to be teammates next year as well, and there is no love lost between those two. So Looking at the two Hasses, I'd keep an eye out on them for the rest of the season. I think there's going to be something happen there. And again, very much looking forward to the Drive to Survive episode on Haas. But we cannot take it away. Monza has been sensational. 3 years in a row. Leclerc, Gasly, Ricciardo. Incredible races, incredible wins, incredible storylines. Monza does it again. It's by far and away one of my favourite tracks of the year now, mainly because McLaren have got a 1-2 there, and I cannot wait to come back to Italy next year. But we have got Russia ahead of us. A massive race, so many talking points. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Your thoughts on Max versus Lewis. Your thoughts on Danny Rick getting his first win in a McLaren. Your thoughts on Bottas and whether or not he's going to show his form again towards the end of the season now that pressure has come off. There's so much to talk about, and we move into Russia next week. 8 races left. It is so incredibly close at the top of the tree. Verstappen and Hamilton is so incredibly close in third place. Bottas and Norris still going at it. Perez dropping a little bit away. Can the Ferraris catch on to Perez? Can Ricciardo keep his lead, or maybe even start to catch those Ferraris in front of him? There's so much happening. There's so much going on. Next week, obviously there is no Russian Grand Prix, but there is still going to be content on the channel. There's this race review. There's going to be a video on Max Verstappen. There's going to be a video on Lewis Hamilton. And as well, the Mick Schumacher documentary is coming out this Wednesday. If you're watching this the day it comes out. Saturday, I'm going to do a watch along, so leave it. Don't watch it on Wednesday. Leave it a few days. We're going to watch it all together live on Saturday at 3 o'clock. I hope to see you there. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. McLaren on the podium. A 1-2. Can we just celebrate Daniel Ricciardo? What a wonderful drive. What a wonderful person. Oh my goodness me. I will see you next time.